Look around you. This is what it looks like to be surrounded by radically generous women.
There have never been this many women in this room. Ever.
We need, as a society, to allow women to bring their full power, strength, creativity to humanity.
This isn't about training women to succeed in a male-dominated system. This is about completely flipping the table and building our own culture.
3,000 activators in 2.5 years. 32 ventures funded across 3 countries.
This is designed to be a perpetual fund. Money is loaned out, paid back into the fund, and then loaned out again.
The goal is as quickly as possible to get to 1 million activators, $1 billion in capital loaned out every year, 10,000 new companies every year.
The idea that we could change the landscape, the financial landscape for women in business.
This movement is going to be worldwide.
This is what's possible when activators select ventures they care about. This is what's possible when ventures are supported by world-class coaches.
It is very extraordinary to have a group of women that you can lean into and actually use their brilliance.
We are going to toast to this year's ventures, last year's ventures, and the 10,000 more that we will support in the years to come.
Women all over the world are coming together. Mothers, daughters, granddaughters, nieces, aged 14 to 93, to fund women-led ventures we love. Together, we're changing the world. Are you in?
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing today? My name is Jessy Wang, and I'm here with the SheEO team. And before we jump into our incredible lineup of speakers and entrepreneurs, I just wanted to share a little bit about SheEO and what we're all about. So as you saw in the video, SheEO is a global community of women and gender non-conforming folks who are dedicated to transforming the way that women entrepreneurs are funded and supported. And first off, a quick show of hands. How many of you in the room are entrepreneurs? That's incredible. And how many of you are this term we call wantrepreneurs, which is maybe you have an idea for a venture that you might want to pursue and are interested in entrepreneurship? A lot more hands, awesome. I know that I fall into that category, and being part of SheEO and seeing so many incredible entrepreneurs and their stories is so inspiring, and I hope that you feel some of that today too. Another quick question, does anyone, and activators can't answer this, as I'm sure you've heard this before, but does anyone have any guesses? Shout it out as to what percentage of funding for startups goes to women. Any guesses? 5%? What else was there? 3%, 2%, 30%? Well, you clearly know a lot of the statistics. So I didn't know any of this when I joined SheEO, but when SheEO started, only 4% of venture capital went to women. And venture capital, for those who are new to the term, is one of the main sources of funding for entrepreneurs to get their business ideas started out in the world. And it's an $85 billion industry. But when SheEO was founded in 2015, the stat was 4%, and that number hasn't changed for decades. But actually, 2 years ago, in 2017, they published a study that only 2.2% of the funding went to women. So the number's actually getting worse for women. And so we at SheEO, we believe that the only way to get capital into the hands of women at a rate of change that we want, which is dramatically quickly, is if we as women and gender non-binary people start stepping up and supporting each other. And so here is how the SheEO model works. As you saw a little bit in the video, in our model, 500 radically generous women each contribute $1,100, we pool all of that money together into a fund called the Radical Generosity Fund. And then every year, those women who contribute money to the fund, who we call activators, they go online and vote for the ventures and the entrepreneurs that they are passionate about, that they think are solving critical issues and problems in society, and that they believe in. So it's democratized selection process. Each year, 500 women are going online to vote for the ventures. And then when those ventures are selected, a really interesting part of the model is that they go away on a weekend retreat. They meet each other for the first time. They learn about each other's businesses and negotiating styles. And then on the last day of the venture retreat, again, it's 5 or 8 women who've just met each other. They negotiate and decide amongst themselves how to divide up the money. There's only 2 guidelines to the process. One is that you can't give it all away to one venture, and the second is that you can't divide it up perfectly evenly. So it's a really interesting part of the process, and every year that we've done this, we hear incredible stories of how these women who have just met are negotiating and collaborating and supporting each other, and seeing how within that room, what collective resources they might share, monetary or otherwise, so that they can use the capital and the money of the activators to create the greatest impact in the world. So those ventures get the money, and they have different loan amounts. No matter how much they walk away with, they then pay back the money into the fund over 5 years in equal installments. And as that money is paid back into the fund, it doesn't go back to the activators, which is why we call it radical generosity, and it doesn't go back to SheEO as an organization. Instead, that money is paid back into the fund, and with every passing year, we're able to support more ventures as the money is paid back. So this year, in Canada, SheEO launched in 2015. In Canada, we're based right here in Toronto. And this year, we were able to fund 8 ventures for the first time. I know some of you in this room were at the summit on Monday. $500,000 was contributed by activators this year. But then we also had $300,000 paid back from each of the first 3 cohorts of ventures. So it's really exciting to see that women in Toronto and across Canada are creating this perpetual fund to support our daughters and our granddaughters and gender non-binary people for generations. So thank you to everyone who's been part of that so far, and thank you to everyone here for being with us today. One of the things that we've noticed, so I mentioned that each year activators go online and vote for the companies that they're passionate about. And one of the guidelines in applying to SheEO is if you're able to answer the question of how your venture is creating a better world. And we've intentionally left this undefined. Then we turn it over to 500 women to identify what that means to them and to vote for the companies that they're passionate about. But one thing that's emerged since launching is that all of the SheEO ventures are solving the world's to-do list. Has anyone seen these UN Sustainable Development Goals? Show of hands, awesome. Oh, all of a sudden a big spurt in hands. And so these UN Sustainable Development Goals, it's funny because I remember studying these when I was in university, learning about international development. And now it's come full circle that each and every one of the 55 SheEO ventures that we've now funded across 4 countries is solving the critical social and environmental challenges of the world today. Those are the types of businesses and companies that women and gender non-binary people are starting, solving critical issues. And I wanted to share a few stories of ventures in the network. So the first is of Nadia Hamilton. Has anyone heard of Magnus Mode? A couple of hands. So Nadia's based in Waterloo, and in her household, her brother Troy has autism. And so when Nadia was growing up, to help out her brother, across her home, she posted and created these little card decks to help Troy remember how to do functions that you or I might take for granted. So for example, how to brush his teeth. And so in the bathroom, she made this little card deck and posted it by the mirror to help him walk through the step-by-step process of brushing your teeth, unscrewing the lid on the toothpaste, putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush, et cetera, et cetera. And these card decks went such a long way for helping Troy and helping him have greater independence instead of always having to ask someone how to do the task. And so Nadia realized this little invention that she had made because of this, because to help her brother, could really be used by millions of people around the world who have cognitive special needs, such as autism. And so she turned that thing that she already did for her brother at home into a company and into a business idea. And so her company is called Magnus Mode, and essentially it turned those physical card decks that she'd made into a mobile app that can now be accessed by hundreds of millions of people around the world with cognitive special needs to live in society with greater independence and inclusion. And what's unique about her business model is that, from a company perspective, how she makes money is that she partners with big companies and brands to produce different slide decks within her app. So to give you an example, she partnered with Tim Hortons for the slide deck on how to order a coffee. And she partnered with Maple Leaf Games to partner on the slide deck on how to go to a sports game and what that process is like. She's also partnered with Pearson Airport for navigating an airport, which, as we know, for anyone can be a really confusing process. And so Nadia is just such a great example of how through entrepreneurship, you can make money and make a successful career and create huge good in the world and social impact. Please clap for Nadia. Another example is Brianne Miller of Nada. Has anyone heard of this relatively new concept of package-free grocery stores or zero waste? Awesome. So Brianne Miller is a super young woman entrepreneur, and she was one of the ventures that was funded exactly a year ago as last year's cohort of SheEO Ventures. And a funny story about Brianne is that I'd actually met her a year before that through a mutual friend when I was in Vancouver. And at that point, Brianne, when I met her, she had a tiny pop-up at an ice cream store, Ernest Ice Cream, if you've ever been in Vancouver and had their ice cream. It's really good. And she had a pop-up, and basically for zero waste groceries, it's as if you were going to Bulk Barn, but you had to bring your own jars and containers. But her pop-up was, the length of one table. You could buy some almonds, you could buy some oats, maybe chia seeds and nut butter. But at that point, that was the extent of her zero waste store, but she'd always had dreams to open up a storefront. And so last year, 500 activators across Canada voted for Brianne as one of the SheEO Ventures. And with that money, she was able to open up her store. And she credits SheEO, without that capital, she never would have been able to open a store because no banks would have loaned out money to her. Brianne's background is a marine biologist, and she's a scientist, and she didn't have any business expertise or experience, let alone opening a store, which, as we know, retail can be very challenging. But those 500 activators, they really believed in her. They saw the need for this type of store, especially in terms of the amount of plastic waste that's created every day through traditional grocery stores. And so with that money, Brianne opened up her store last July in Vancouver. And within 3 weeks of opening her store, she was featured in this beautiful spread in New York Times about the future of grocery shopping. And since then, she's been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post, Globe and Mail. She's created 25 jobs, hiring people to work and run her store. She's opened up a zero-waste cafe, so every day they're providing fresh vegetarian and vegan options, and there's zero waste coming out of it. And she's diverted already 125,000 plastic containers from landfills and oceans. She's on track to divert 500,000 containers within the first year. She's halfway there. And she's on track to hit $1 million in revenue, all within her first year of opening Nada. And again, as I mentioned, Brianne doesn't have this business experience or this expertise. She never studied business or entrepreneurship in school. She was passionate about oceans, and when she was a marine biologist, diving into the oceans and doing scuba diving to collect research, she noticed all of these plastic containers and plastic waste throughout the coral reef systems. And that's what drove her to want to make a systemic change. And I share that story with you to say that no matter what your previous experience or what your background challenges. If you have an idea for how to make the world better, we believe that you can do that, and we're here to support you as well. A third story I'll share is Patrice Mousseau, also based in Vancouver, and her company is called Satya. Does anyone in this room have eczema or know someone who has eczema? Show of hands. I'm always blown away by just how many people that affects, and or you're so likely to know someone in your family or your friend group who also suffers from eczema. Well, for Patrice, when her daughter was really, really young, just a couple of months old, and a newborn, her daughter had really bad eczema. And one day, her daughter Esme, when Patrice woke up in the morning, her daughter Esme had scratched herself so much that she was bleeding. And so she went to the doctor and said, my baby has eczema, can you help? But the doctor, as some of you may know, the current on the market prescription drugs to help with eczema, they all have steroids in them. And Patrice, as a new mom, she says, no way am I putting steroids on my newborn child. And so Patrice, at that time, she had never started a business, or was she working in business. She was actually a journalist and a reporter and a TV news anchor. Well, she put her journalism skills to use, and she went to the library and she started researching. And Patrice is also Indigenous, and so she started researching Indigenous traditional recipes, seeing what natural ingredients might work to help with skin conditions and with eczema. And so she was doing her research, and she found this combination, and she tried it out in her crock pot. Again, something anyone could do. She put together 5 natural ingredients, all of which are safe to eat. None of them have steroids, they're all natural. And she got to work in her crock pot, and she came up with this balm. Well, she put the balm on her daughter, Esme, and within a couple of days, the eczema was completely healed. And so then she thought maybe there were other people who might benefit from her new invention. And so she posted in her Facebook mommies group asking, does anyone else's child have eczema who could potentially benefit from this new solve? And just like we saw when everyone's hands went up, a lot of mothers had interest. And so they were commenting on her post and looking to get some of the solve. So Patrice turned that from 1 crock pot into 3 crock pots, and then she started selling it at her local farmer's market. Well, fast forward a couple of years, she was a SheEO venture 2 years ago, and now you can find Satya Organic in 1,300 drugstores and natural stores all across Canada, which is really incredible. So this is the last venture story that I'm going to share. And another quick show of hands, how many of you in this room are passionate about environment and climate change action? I know that especially when I was in high school and ever since, that has been an issue that really speaks to me. And so, issues of plastic waste especially are so harmful and really critical and pertinent for us to solve in the world. So Chelsea, similar to Brianne, she's also really passionate about plastic waste and eliminating plastic waste in the oceans. And so right now, with disposable single-use plastics, which if you've ever had fast food or gone takeout, we all know is in everywhere we go, those single-use plastics are often non-recyclable, or they don't get recycled. Actually, only a really, really small percentage of those single-use plastics gets recycled. And I just listened to a podcast last week that said even those amounts of plastic that are recycled, very small proportion, even then, are actually turned into something because our recycling facilities are not well equipped for that. And so this entire plastic pollution problem is huge and is really choking our planet and the environment. And not only that, but with the plastic, when it's not recycled, it often ends up in the ocean and it disintegrates over time. It doesn't truly biodegrade, but over time it just breaks down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. It's often, I'm sure you've seen those photos in the media where, they did a little analysis on a seagull and found that there was so much plastic in them, or dissected a whale and found so many tons of plastic within the whale that they had ingested through tiny microparticles. And so much of our seafood ecosystem is also ingesting that plastic. And when we as humans sit down to eat salmon at the dinner table, we in turn are then consuming that plastic as well. So clearly not good for the environment and not good for people. And so Chelsea has this incredible invention. She's a designer. She went to school and studied design, and she, with this passion for solving the plastic crisis, thought, what if there was a way to have completely biodegradable, but take it a step further? And so she invented the lolly straw. And the lolly straw is the world's first hyper-compostable, edible straw. It's made out of seaweed. It comes in all of these bright colors and delicious flavors, and it will end single-use plastic. Right now, she's on track to replace billions of plastic straws with the lolly straw, and she's negotiating deals with Starbucks, with McDonald's, with Tetra Pak. Watch out for Chelsea and Lollyware, because she is truly changing the world. And she just started that with an idea, and today is so exciting because we're going to hear from an incredible lineup of entrepreneurs, artists, and women and non-gender binary people who similarly had an idea, saw a problem out there in the world that they wanted to solve, and we're here to help you get there. So with that, I'd love to invite up Vicki Saunders, who is the founder of SheEO, to share a little bit more about what makes today so special.
Thanks, Jessy. Hi, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much for coming out. So I'm the founder of SheEO, and you just heard from Jessy what we do and what we're about. And we really started this to get money and support into the hands of amazing women who are changing the world. That was our 100% goal. And one of the things that happened along the way, as activators, the women who contribute capital, were going online and voting, they happened to be talking about it in their families. And so one of the things that happened is a young woman, a daughter of one of our activators, watched her mother vote, read through these amazing applications, and was so excited about it, she started talking to her friends at school. And she and her friends created the first SheEO club in California. 45 girls got together, started a club in their school, put in $25 each, and they became a single activator and started to vote. And as we heard that story, I went to their first meeting at their high school in California, which was amazing, and started talking about it. And then we came back to Canada and started talking about it, and people started to come to us and got excited. And are Serena and Jordan here? Yeah, can you stand up for a sec? These are two amazing young women who helped create RadGen, and today is possible because of them. Woo! Awesome, thank you. So they helped us to brainstorm, first of all, what we should call this, RadGen, and also to create some really amazing programming around this, which we're going to talk to you a little bit later. So all of this has been just following the energy of what people want, and we are so, so passionate about changing the world. And we know that you're the next generation of leaders that are coming along. So we want to do everything that we can to create a friction-free space for you to come forward and show us what you'd like to change in the world. So today is really about hearing from some stories. There are many, many more. But you're going to hear some amazing women telling their stories. And what I'd like to just say before we kind of jump into that is, if you have questions that you want to ask, please ask them. We're creating a space today where literally we're all off the record. Well, I mean, it's being recorded, so I guess it's on the record. But we really want you to bring out whatever questions you have. How was it for you getting started? Whatever you want to be asking, this is a chance to ask today. After each talk, we'll have Q&A. Also, on the way in, you might have seen that we have this Ask Give board at the back, and you'll see in the front lobby. It's a chance to offer something that you may have to somebody here. Maybe you're an expert in digital media. Maybe you have great social media following. Whatever it is, you can make an offer to people here. And you can also ask for help. And if you fill out the card, we're going to share that all after so you can get connected with one another.
okay? And we're going to do a little activity later where you can actually ask for help out loud and get support, because we really believe that you're just one step removed in this network from whoever you want, okay? So this is a day for you to sort of see behind the scenes, literally ask whatever you want, and we're just about to get started. So I am going to bring out our MC again, Rooks, and then we'll see you in a minute.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Vicki. Okay, so before we move any further, I have to tell you guys, I don't trust you anymore. Do you want to know why? Because I said premier. Did anybody hear that? No one caught that? I don't want to meet the premier, trust me. I'm very excited that I got to meet the Prime Minister of Canada. I know my politics. Don't think I don't.